What if I told you that the label "Made in the USA" doesn't always mean what you think it means? In the middle of the biggest trade war of our time, between the US and China, something strange is happening. As the US slaps massive tariffs on Chinese goods, Chinese companies aren't backing down. They're setting up shop in America itself. Factories, warehouses, assembly lines, all built by China, in the United States. Welcome to a story that's part trade war, part strategy, and part economic chess match. This is the untold story of how "Made in the USA" is being redefined by China. In early 2025, the United States escalated its tariff war against China to new heights. Under pressure from domestic industries and political narratives, the US imposed tariffs as high as 100% to 145% on a wide range of Chinese imports. These included electric vehicles, EVs, solar panels, semiconductors, and more. The official reason? Protecting American industry, reducing dependency on China, and reviving domestic manufacturing. The message was clear. Chinese imports are no longer welcome, but China didn't respond with panic. It responded with strategy. If Chinese goods couldn't be shipped into the United States, they'd be built inside it. To dodge tariffs, Chinese companies started doing something that no one saw coming. They began building their own factories in the US, and not small ones. We're talking about high-tech facilities, employing thousands, producing everything from EVs to solar panels to consumer electronics, right on American soil. One of the biggest examples, Luxshare. Luxshare is one of Apple's most important suppliers, responsible for assembling AirPods, charging cables, and even some iPhone components. Faced with rising tariffs and geopolitical pressure, Luxshare announced plans to expand its production base in the United States. Chairwoman Wang Lichen stated publicly that the company is delaying some expansion in China in favor of investing overseas, including in the US. Why? Because assembling Apple products closer to Apple's customers is smarter and cheaper than fighting through tariff walls. Let's take another case. Volvo cars. You might not know this, but Volvo is owned by Geely, a Chinese auto giant. In response to the US government's 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles, Volvo has decided to expand vehicle production in America. They're not alone. Several Chinese EV firms are setting up assembly plants across the southern United States, where land is cheap, regulations are flexible, and the market is ready. One standout example is Windrose, a Chinese electric truck startup. They're building a manufacturing plant in Georgia to produce semi-trucks for the American market starting in 2025, targeting long-haul and delivery fleets. This gives them a critical edge. They avoid tariffs, qualify for US green energy tax credits, and appeal to patriotic consumers, all while competing head-to-head with Tesla and other US brands. Now let's talk solar. The solar energy sector in the US is booming. But guess who's quietly powering it? Chinese companies. In the last year alone, Chinese firms have committed to building over 20 gigawatts of annual solar panel manufacturing capacity within the US. That's enough to supply half of all panels used in the American market. Why? Because US tariffs on imported solar panels make local production incredibly lucrative, especially when combined with Biden's Inflation Reduction Act subsidies. So now, companies that were once accused of flooding the market with cheap panels are producing those same panels in Texas and Georgia, hiring American workers, claiming US tax credits, and calling it domestic manufacturing. But the ownership? Still very much Chinese. So, what does all of this mean? It means that more and more products on American shelves are proudly labeled "Made in USA." But if you dig deeper, if you trace the capital, the control, the supply chain, you'll often find they're still Chinese at the core. It's a clever workaround. The tariff says, "Don't bring your goods here." China replies, "Fine, we'll bring the factory." But this strategy hasn't gone unnoticed. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIS, the powerful federal body that reviews foreign takeovers, has ramped up scrutiny of these deals, especially when Chinese firms invest in industries tied to national security, data, telecom, or critical infrastructure. As a result, some Chinese companies are partnering with U.S. firms, using joint ventures, or even creating American shells, entities that appear domestic but are backed by Chinese capital. These moves make regulatory oversight harder and fuel fears of espionage, intellectual property theft, or long-term influence. This trend raises big questions. On one hand, these Chinese-built U.S. factories are creating jobs, rebuilding infrastructure, bringing new tech, and reducing the trade deficit. That sounds great, right? But here's the other side. Is this real domestic revival, or just a new form of dependency? Are we letting foreign rivals control strategic sectors of our economy just because they're building locally? And does the label "Made in the USA" still mean what it used to? Here's the genius of it all, from China's perspective. By investing in the US, they keep access to American markets, avoid the sting of tariffs, gain political leverage, and even qualify for US subsidies. It's economic judo, using the opponent's weight, or in this case, protectionist policies, against them. And it's happening not just in America, but across Europe, Africa, and Southeast Asia. China is decentralizing its factories to outsmart trade barriers and future-proof its global power. So the next time you see a product proudly labeled "Made in the USA," ask yourself, who owns the factory? Because in this new age of global economics, the line between foreign and domestic is blurrier than ever. And China, long seen as the world's factory, might now be turning America into one of its factories. Not through takeover, not through exports, but through something much smarter: adaptation. This is the new trade war, and this time it's not fought with tariffs. It's fought with factories.